because finally the government today announced Australia's 2035 emissions reduction target. Now, this is information we all should have had before we voted in May, and when I walk you through the detail, you can see now why they hid it from you, because it's economically reckless, it's environmentally destructive, it'll impoverish households even more, and the worst of it all, it won't make a scrap of difference to global temperatures, given that we're scarcely 1% of the problem. Now, right now, in Australia, we have 2 targets to meet by 2030. The first one is a 43% decrease in our emissions. And the second one is that renewables target, and that is that they form, renewables, 82% of our electricity generation in just 5 years' time. And right now, there's not an expert in the country, not one, that says we'll meet either of those targets. So what does Labor do? Well, today, they doubled down on failure, announcing a plan to cut emissions by as much as 70% by 2035. That's right, the same government that can't get us 43% down in 5 years' time now reckons they can get us 70% down in 10 years. And despite releasing more than 50 pages of detail, nowhere are they willing to tell you just how much this commitment will cost you. I mean, this is a scam.
No policy detail, no costing detail, no price impact detail. Why is it that the government is releasing so much information but fails to tell the Australian people the impact it is going to have? The Treasurer has a 53-page document. I've had a quick read. Not once does that document, apparently modelled by Treasury, outline the cost of Labor's plan to get to 2035. Over the last 3+ years, under this government, we have seen prices go up, reliability go down, and emissions just flatline. They have zero credibility whatsoever, and today's release of information was nothing more than a word salad of promises which, again, will not be kept.
Now, everything there that Ted O'Brien, the Shadow Treasurer, said is accurate, but it gets worse. Not content with keeping the cost of this madness from you, Labor even admitted today that Australia's climate plans are way ahead the rest of the world, that they were ambitious, meaning we're leading the world in destroying our economy, we're leading the world in negating the natural advantage that our resources have always given us, that we're leading the world in deindustrialisation, in making ourselves weak, while all of our adversaries are focused on building their strength, as if this is something to be proud of.
An orderly transition to net zero is a golden economic opportunity for Australia.
Our range positions Australia as a global leader on climate ambition. In fact, we are presenting a higher ambition than most other advanced economies. Now, the Paris Agreement calls on countries to set their highest possible ambition in light of their national circumstances. And our bottom-up analysis proves that we've done exactly that. It's ambitious, but it's absolutely feasible. Today's report is ambitious for Australia. It's ambitious for a prosperous future that places Australia's people and Australia's industries in the driver's seat on the global push to protect our planet.
This is ambitious, but it's achievable. And as the Prime Minister said, it's ambitious by international standards compared to like-minded similar economies. It is ambitious by what has been laid out in terms of halving emissions from today, but it's achievable.
What a goon show. Would it surprise you to know that the word ambitious featured almost 100 times in that press conference? Probably not. You're not surprised, because this isn't about the science. This has never been about the science. It's never even been about reducing emissions, because if Labor was serious about that, well, nuclear power would be on the table, but in this country, it is still banned by law. What staggers me in all of this is how Labor gets away with the biggest change to our economy since the Industrial Revolution without a skerrick of costing information. And it's not just me saying that.
The global shift to clean energy is the biggest economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, so Chris Bowen and I agree, very rarely, but on that point we do. So why won't he or the government come clean about the cost? I mean, do you buy a house without asking how much it'll cost? Does business build a new factory or launch a new product and put it on the shelf without working out how much it'll cost? So why are we letting government get away with it? The Business Council of Australia only last week released a report that put the cost of achieving a 70% target at over $500 billion. And the Net Zero Australia report in 2023 costed climate change measures up to 2030 at $1.5 trillion. Now, as usual, the government's trying to frog march us into accepting this latest act of economic self-harm by saying that the rest of the world is doing much the same. Now, sure, the EU might be, but they're not doing it with unreliable wind and solar. I mean, they're going to meet their targets, like the UK, by going hell for leather on nuclear. But the countries that are most like us, large resource economies like Canada, well, they're nowhere near a 70% target. In Canada, they're looking at a target of 45 to 50%. New Zealand, where agriculture is a big industry like here, they're not 70% either. They're in the 51 to 55% target range. Indeed, these two comparisons today were put to the Prime Minister.
So 2 questions. The range is higher than comparable economies such as Canada and New Zealand. What do you say to that, and what will the impact be? And secondly, will we see a carbon tariff to reach this goal?
Our policy, our plan to get there is in Australia's net zero plan that we're also releasing today in terms of sectoral plans, and we think we've got the sweet spot. There will be criticism from some who say it's too high. There's some who will say that it's too low. What we have done is accept the Climate Change Authority's advice, and importantly, this is world's best practice.
What a fudge. The PM couldn't even answer that question, couldn't explain why we're so far ahead of the pack. And let's not forget the reality of the biggest emitters in all of this. Under Donald Trump, America has made no emissions reduction pledge at all. They've pulled out of Paris and they're doing everything they can to drill, baby, drill. The other big three, China, India and Russia, well, they've never been committed to net zero by 2050. I mean, these countries don't put reducing emissions ahead of growing their economies. And so if we had our heads screwed on properly, neither should we. Today, the Prime Minister implied that China was all in for renewables.
I make this point about international comparisons as well, because we'll hear from the coalition, often the sceptics will say, oh, well, the rest of the world isn't acting, therefore Australia shouldn't do anything. Just one fun fact from the Global Energy Monitor. The amount of wind and solar power under construction in China is now nearly twice as much as the rest of the world combined. Just a fun fact there. We are part of what is a global transformation that is occurring. We need to do our part, but of course we know that the world has to act as well.
Okay, well, that's not a fun fact. That's a false fact. The truth is that wind and solar provide about 25% of China's electricity. And you know what provides the other 60%? And there's other numbers in there, but 60%, that's coal. Coal often mined here in Australia. Our coal we can't use, but that we export north to his mates in Beijing. And what he's also not telling you about his mates in Beijing is that they are massively expanding China's coal-fired output. Last year, China approved 67 gigawatts of new coal-fired power. That's roughly double Australia's entire generation capacity. That's just their increase, and it's almost double what we have here in this country. And it's also begun a further 96 gigawatts of coal-fired power construction, or roughly 3 times Australia's entire power output. Now, naturally, like everything this government announces, they're shoveling more of your money out the door, some $8 billion of new taxpayer spending, despite the fact it's withdrawing the social licence of the resource industries that we need in order to keep generating the tax revenues to allow Labor to keep spending. I mean, the budget does not add up. And actually, the government reiterated its standard lines about wind and solar being cheap. I mean, come on. This is a con job. We see through it now. No one believes that their power bills are going to fall under this plan. They've never fallen, despite all this talk of cheap wind and cheap solar. Even as they asked the question on this very point today, the journalists couldn't keep a straight face.
Prime Minister, you say this will put downward pressure on energy prices. By what exact figure?
You yourself laughed when you asked that question, so it should be treated in the spirit in which you've done. What we know is, if we don't act, there will be a cost to the economy, as the Treasurer has outlined.
Are pensioners laughing, PM, when they get their power bills? Are small business laughing when they get their power bills? Are all the workers that are losing their job because their industry is going offshore, are they laughing at what you're doing to our economy? No surprise after that was the first tough question that the PM then shut down the press conference and scarpered out of the room. I mean, this is a joke. And unless the opposition opposes all of this, not just the 2035 targets, and good on them today for saying that, but all of the net zero nonsense, we are finished as a first world economy. We might as well start learning to speak Mandarin now, or Arabic. It just depends who takes over us first, doesn't it? I mean, we really are starting to give up on ourselves.